The August vote is all about abortion, and the state Senate wants a tax cut and universal vouchers. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. We still wait for the Ohio Supreme Court to decide if voters will be asked to make it harder to change the state's constitution. At issue is whether the state legislature can order an August election months after it made such elections illegal. The amendment, if passed, would require a 60% majority to pass future amendments. A leader of the effort, Secretary of State Frank LaRose, recently confirmed what most believe. The August vote is to thwart a possible November abortion rights amendment.
And some people say this is all about abortion. Well, you know what? I'm pro-life. I think many of you are as well, right? And this is 100% about keeping a radical pro-abortion amendment out of our Constitution. The left wants to jam it in there this coming November. And so, yes, it's about abortion, but it's about so many other things as well. Because the next thing they want to do is put a $15 an hour minimum wage in our state constitution. And who knows what's next?
Gene Krebs, he said it's 100% about abortion, but also about other stuff. So is his math bad, or did the truth sneak out?
8 months ago on this show, I said that Frank is getting bad political advice, and I really hope he's watching this show and begins to back away from some of this stuff. This is just bad politics on his part, and he's putting above himself a glass ceiling. I wish he would back off of some of these things, because what he's doing is, what he said was that, in effect, oh, they're going, you know, they are going to pass this abortion issue, but he forgot to mention that the citizens have to vote on it. And so he's denying citizens their agency, their free will, they're able to make up their own mind on stuff. That's a dangerous thing for conservatives to say.
But they do get to vote. You just have to, it's harder.
Yeah, but he blew right past that on the they're going to put this abortion thing on the ballot. He blew right past that.
Laura Bishop, I mean, it's obviously timed for the abortion amendment. That's why they're doing this in August, because the minimum wage amendment is, they're not even close to the ballot. They could do that in November. They could do it next November.
Right. I mean, what's interesting is that the voters have had this power since, 1913, so 110 years or so. And over the course of that time, you know, the voters have pushed the legislature when it didn't want to be put, like when it wouldn't budge on certain issues. That's when citizens took it to the ballot, and we got the minimum wage tied to inflation, we got casino gambling, we got the indoor smoking ban, which was a initiated statute. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of issues in which if the legislature is hesitant to move on, and the people have been able to push.
Term limits could not have happened without the citizens driving this issue.
And some have gone down. The bottle bill went down, the dove bill went down, the dove hunting bill went down.
Casinos went down several times before it finally passed.
So I will say this. I mean, first of all, well, duh, it is about abortion. Everybody really behind the scenes knows that. The real shock of it is that the talking points the Republicans are putting out is don't say that, and then here the Secretary of State goes and does that. The end thing that he said is what I'm really keying on. What is this war on poor people that's going on at the State House? I mean, $15 an hour right now, when you have minimal unemployment, you're trying to find people to work. They're even trying to get rid of, you know, child labor laws and let younger people work, but you don't want to pay them $15?
The Supreme Court ruling has not come down as we record the show on Friday afternoon. We don't anticipate it coming down today, but it should come down soon, right, Laura? I mean, at some point they have to print the ballots, and we're going to vote August 8th, and you know, early voting starts in July, and
right. But I think military ballots start getting shipped out like June 23rd or so.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have to make a decision pretty soon. So I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't come out like next week sometime.
And I don't think the outcome will be any more of a surprise than this is about abortion. This is a political court. They even have DNR on their name. Increasingly, the Ohio Supreme Court has become a political arm, and I would be very surprised if you find that it's not on the ballot.
Gene, the wild card has been mentioned on this show and by others is the possible swing vote would be Justice Pat Fisher. staunchly conservative, but also a pretty strict constitutionalist, believes strongly in due process. He opposed the Roe versus Wade decision because it said it was an activist judge's ruling. Could he vote to say, you know what, you guys passed a law, said no August elections, but you're trying to do one anyway?
I have to give full credit to former OSU poli-sci professor on this show, Herb Asher, who first pointed out Pat Fisher's possible role in this. I would think that all Republican legislators need to be praying and hoping that Pat Fisher rules against them on this issue one kerfuffle. Simply because he needs to save them from themselves. As I've said before, this is, for the Republicans, the equivalent of the 1983 Dick Celeste tax increase that we successfully used to throttle the ambitions of essentially a whole generation of Democrats.
Is there a plan B? Laura, have you heard of a plan B if the August election gets canceled by the Supreme Court, or if abortion rights opponents lose in August? Is there a plan B to compete against a possible November amendment?
Meaning if the August election is canceled.
If
by
it's
the
canceled
court,
or the 60% threshold thing loses?
Well, then I think that they just, the anti-abortion folks just go all out with a message of this is too extreme, this is not what Ohioans want, we need to keep it out of the Constitution.
If they're smart, I can draft for you in about 30 seconds a moderate abortion amendment to be put up on the ballot. It takes me 30 seconds to draft it. It would beat the current language because it's very clear and unambiguous. And so I expect them to do that and put it up. They have until August 8th to pass it through the House and Senate.
Will the Republicans coalesce around, say, a 12-week ban or a 15-week ban? Right now, this current one is the Roe standard.
The problem is, again, that caucus and that split is so tough. Will they be politically realistic about this? Or if something came to that, will there be absolutists who will say, I will never vote for anything that allows for any kind of an abortion? And, it's a consultant's dream. They get 2 elections in a row within 3 or 4 months. A lot of money is going to be flying through the state.
The other issue that's still out there is the language of the summary. There's an error in it. It says that signature gatherers need to collect 5% of all registered voters in the county to get it on the ballot. The amendment says, no, it's 5% of those who voted in the last governor's election. 50% turnout, that's a big difference, Laura.
Yeah, it's like double.
Yeah.
So that would significantly increase the lift that would have to be made for these kinds of ballot initiatives.
If it were a different situation with Democrats involved, it would have been tossed over that issue alone, but it's not.
They say it's, the supporters, the authors of the ballot language say, well, it's irrelevant because it's only in the summary, it's not in the amendment, and everyone's going to know what they're voting on anyway.
So there's a fair amount of quiet buzz that they are purposely sabotaging this. That's just clumsy on their part to put that in. It's not accurate, it's just legally clumsy. And it makes you wonder if they aren't going, please, Supreme Court, save us from ourselves. Because if they do, they get the best of all worlds. They've satisfied their pro-life base, but it doesn't have to, then they don't have to ask the question that they do not know the answer of from the general public.
Interesting. Anyway, the third and final version of the state budget is out. The Ohio Senate budget plan calls for a sizable tax cut and private school vouchers for just about every Ohio family. The Senate calls for a $1.5 billion tax cut. Ohio's income brackets would be reduced to just 2, and businesses would also see a tax cut. As for the vouchers, the Senate plan would allow for private school stipends for families of 4, making up to $135,000 a year. Vouchers for families making more than that would be less, and that would be determined on a sliding scale based on the family's income. Laura Bischoff, this is the third budget. We had the governor's budget, the House budget, now the Senate budget. This budget seems to be the most conservative and the most aggressive as far as conservative principles of the 3. Would you say that? Or?
Well, certainly, I mean, going deeper with tax cuts and deeper with education choice, ed choice or school vouchers is definitely, those are, very conservative ideas, and they've been around for a long time. And it seems that maybe the Senate has gone farther. It's not really the final version, or it's the third version, but it's not the final version.
Not the final version. Yeah, now they have to figure all
now
it
they
all
have to
out.
meld it all together,
Yes.
and the magic of conference committees, and come up with something by June 30th.
Plenty of time.
Plenty of time, plenty of time. But it's interesting because there's just so much education policy change in there. They wrapped in Senate Bill 83, which has to do with conditions on college campuses and whether or not professors, have to create an environment free of bias, and that's been very controversial. It's ginned up a lot of attention. So it's a hefty policy budget.
Gene, does Ohio need a tax cut? The governor and some business leaders said, you know what, we need to spend money on K through 12 education more than we need a tax cut.
I think what you're seeing is the General Assembly may be about 20 years behind the curve on this, and that is because when I was a kid, you looked for a job, you found a job, then you moved to where that job was. Now the young and the creative class now look for where they want to live, and then they go look for a job there. So the question is, what is the state doing for quality of life issues? And that's how you begin to really attract young and creative and innovation. If you want to build the industries of tomorrow, you start off with today by asking college graduates and grad students, where do you want to live? What does it take to get you to move there? And you give it to them. You do not argue with them.
Right. You usually used to work with the UAW, auto workers in Michigan. Workforce development is huge. What can the state legislature do?
The problem is that Gene's right. This is an Austin Powers budget going back decades. I mean, they're expanding vouchers. The whole point of vouchers was to give people access, but now you're letting wealthier people go get that access. You're limiting on college campuses the ability to talk about controversial subjects. I mean, if there were a Flat Earth Society member person in the legislature, they'd probably try to throw that in. I mean, this is a draconian budget where they're cutting school lunches, but putting more money into the pocket of wealthier people to send their kids and help subsidize their private schools. It is not going to attract people. And in the 8 years I was in Michigan at the UAW, since I've come back, in most measurable statistics, this state has fallen behind, and the wage gap and the wealth gap has just exploded, and this is going to do it more.
The Senate did adjust the literacy program, which is a favorite of Governor DeWine, and so there is some education stuff in there. And you said there's education policy in the budget as well, which often happens, even though it's a money document.
Yeah, I think they earmarked $100 million for the governor's literacy program, which would shift the focus from what do they call it, balanced learning, to more of a phonics-based approach, which is important. There's just such huge numbers of kids that are not proficient in reading. The Senate eliminated a plan to bump up the minimum salary for teachers from $30,000 to $40,000, so that's gone. So it's sort of a mix and match.
A lot of cuts to some social programs in this budget as well. Again, this is not the final plan. It's going to get hammered out between the governor's office and the House, but that's not the best look, trying to help folks who are unfortunate or lower on the income scale.
Yeah, I know. And once again, it goes to a series of questions that they're trying. The question is how much can you punish poor people for already being poor? And how much do you want to reward rich people for being rich? Okay, and the thought is that if you reward rich people for being rich, you can attract more rich people to come to your state. You need to attract, once again, the innovators who will create hundreds of rich people.
Okay. The Ohio Unemployment Fund is perpetually low on funds. It's fine when times are good, like now, with a low unemployment rate. But when recessions hit, the state often has to borrow money from the federal government to cover the benefits of laid off workers. A new bill in the Senate would try to ensure the fund's solvency. It would cut benefits from a maximum of 26 weeks to as few as 12 weeks. It would eliminate dependent children allowances for those who qualify for the highest benefits. And the plan does increase unemployment taxes on businesses a little, but businesses would end up paying less because of the cut in overall benefits. Brian Rothenberg, this seems like an issue that has been around forever. And it seems like it would be talk about a place where there is middle ground. Let's cut benefits a little, let's raise the taxes a little, solve it, we're good.
So the thing that you're not saying, which has happened all along, is then a crisis will come along and those loans that the federal government gives have always been forgiven for the most part.
Yeah.
So look, This 12 weeks would be lower than any state in the country. Even Montana has 26 weeks like we do. It's ridiculous. It's another attack on and punishes poor people. And it's another example that lobbyists for the business industry are running the Ohio legislature, and legislators are representing the business interests. And you need to look no further than the meeting that they had over funding issue 1, where the Senate president called a bunch of people in who had amendments in front of the legislature for the budget, and told them all they had to give $2,500 apiece. Now, where I come from, that kind of sounds like extortion, but they're running the legislature.
Does this problem get solved in this legislature, in Governor DeWine's second-term Laura this time, or no?
Based on past performance, I would say no. This is something, Brian and I were talking about how even like 15, 18 years ago, we were discussing this as an issue. It's been ongoing for decades in Ohio. And the loans that they take out, once there's an economic crisis and we have to go to the feds and borrow money, at least the last one was repaid with COVID cash.
Right.
So the feds gave Ohio money, and then Ohio gave some of it back to
The one before
wipe
that,
out that.
Using federal money.
2007
Yeah.
was
Right.
over the recession funds that we got. So,
Right.
yeah.
My memory on this goes back to 1993, when some of us conservatives were saying, let's privatize all this. And George Victor Voinovich says, no, I can manage our way out of it. And Republican leadership said, we have to let the governor attempt to manage his way out of it. So we had a chance to grab that brass ring with some truly conservative solutions that other states have implemented. And poof, we lost that opportunity then.
Privatizing, what would that look like? How would
And it would look like most other states.
the week benefit, 26 weeks, half a year.
Right.
In good economic times, Brian, that seems like a long time. And I think the plan is that in good economic times when the rate is fairly low, then it would go to
It
12
does, unless
points.
you think about how that impacts different industries. So, for instance, with the UAW in the auto industry, 26 weeks, you're retooling a plant. That's about what they need, so they get the 26 weeks of unemployment. And then Ford or GM or Chrysler, they supplement that with sub-pay so that those folks get some kind of pay while they're retooling the plants. It's going to hurt things like our manufacturing sector if you get rid of that.
How much of an impact do these taxes have on businesses? Is it a huge part of their budget, or is it just try to keep it low on principle?
So let me engage in Manichaean heresy here and divide everything into black and to white. If you have unskilled labor, this is huge. If you're working down at Rickenbacker in the logistics industry, this is huge. If you're instead a computer programmer, this is a rounding error in the pay. So that's the way to describe it. If you are engaged in that type of situation, for Rickenbacker and logistics, yeah, huge.
So restaurants and those
Yeah,
type of
that's
things.
why the Restaurant Association's engaged in all of this stuff now. They've been very active, this General Assembly.
Okay, our last topic. House Bill 6 is still with us. The nuclear bailout remains in law, as law, despite one of its architects heading to federal prison. A new effort is trying to repeal the law and the subsidies it gives to 2 coal-fired plants, one of which is in Indiana. Meanwhile, former House Speaker Larry Householder and lobbyist Matt Borges wait for their sentences. They will come in late June. We still don't know if anyone else will face criminal prosecution in this scandal. Laura Bischoff, the current House Speaker, does not support repealing House Bill 6. You would think a new speaker would want to wipe the slate clean of this terrible bill that caused all these problems, but he does not. Why not?
Well, they've already repealed the subsidies, which were which were the most for the nuclear power plants, which were the most contentious, I would say. I'm not really sure why they're keeping on with the coal-fired subsidies, but what I would say is that it's almost 4 years since that thing got signed into law, and 3 years since Larry Householder got arrested. And if they didn't do it already, I don't think they're going to do it.
They're trying to go around the speaker with a special petition. Will it work, Gene?
So if it works, it goes to the Senate, and then it dies in the Senate. And this is legislative mosquito bite scratching. It feels good. It accomplishes nothing. You do it long enough, you have a small scar, and that's what we're seeing here. This is. And at the end of the day, this is not going to accomplish anything because you're not having both chambers united on it.
I mean, here's the bottom line. We haven't passed any new ethics reforms to prevent something like that from happening again. We haven't really dealt with this issue. This issue was the company trying to buy legislation in their interest, which they did, which is bribery. But I just talked about another instance where you have, on the legislative side, the Senate president bringing lobbyists in and saying, give us $2,100, with everybody knowing they have stuff in the budget, which sounds to me like extortion. So we haven't done anything here.
Discharge petitions, from experience, are very easy to get up to 46 signatures in
Yeah.
the House. Getting them the rest of the way,
Yeah.
It is 50 is what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's
we haven't seen many
Sisyphusian.
work.
Yeah.
Sisyphus and the big rock comes to mind real quick.
So what they, just to, for those who aren't embedded in the State House, they need 50 lawmakers to sign a petition to put the measure on the floor for a vote, whether or not the Speaker or anybody else wants
I'm
it to
trying
happen.
to recall, I've been around since 1986. I don't remember this actually ever happening other than passing the House and then dying in the
I
Senate.
remember signing a discharge petition, and then they had to reattach my head by Velcro because it got taken off.
June 29th and 30th, correct, Laura, is the sentencing for Householder and Borges. Any indication what kind of sentence they might get?
I think they'll get prison sentences, but I don't know how many years. That's entirely up to U.S. District Court Judge Tim Black, who handled the trial. And, you know, we've been waiting on this pre-sentencing report, which they go and they do the background, and then they make recommendations to the judge, and then the judge considers it and looks at all the sentencing guidelines, and bada boom, bada bing, we get to June 29th for Householder and June 30th for Matt Borges.
Case is still under appeal. Do they have to report to prison that day, or will they be allowed
It
to?
depends on the judge, but I will tell you that when you show no remorse in that pre-sentencing report, that plays into what the judge will decide to do. And they didn't really treat the judge very well during the trial either, so I don't know if they'll be able to remain out.
You don't anticipate Larry Householder expressing remorse in his sentencing report?
No, I do not. I will agree with Brian here. The Department of Justice is highly incensed over Larry having gaggles for the news reporters at the steps of the courthouse, and they're very incensed about that, and they're urging pretty harsh treatment.
Yeah, I don't think that I didn't get that sense. I mean, the U.S. Attorney held a gaggle out on the steps of the courthouse as well.
Yeah.
It was interesting to me, though, that the first day of trial, Larry Householder comes in, and before court started, you know, the State House press corps, we gathered around him, and he basically held a gaggle right there on the courthouse floor. It was like he never put the gavel down.
Yeah. Will there be any other guilty pleas, indictments in this case? Sam Randazzo, the former head of the Public Utilities Commission, First Energy says they paid him $4.5 million in bribes. And
You know, it's like an onion, it peels itself, and as these things happen, more get peeled and more get peeled. So I would think there's a chance that there would be more.
Gene, what's the talk at the State House? Are people worried about this? Or it has been 3 years now, so.
Everybody is whistling past the graveyard, and if I don't talk about it, it does not exist. They know it's coming, and those of us who are able to step back and go, you should be frightened, are going, yeah, they really should be, and they're not.
First Energy, the company has pleaded guilty to bribery, but not the folks who ran the company, who are now out of jobs, of course, but not been charged yet.
Yeah, the company signed a deferred prosecution agreement, which allowed them to not be charged as long as they follow that agreement. I think it was in place for 3 years. And paid that $230 million fine and cooperated. And based on the stuff that came out of the trial, they definitely cooperated. The company cooperated. There was a lot of material that they turned over to prosecutors, and it was embedded in the evidence.
The evidence in the trial indicate that there will be some other.
I mean, it sure looks that way given what's happened and how it's done, but the federal government will never tell you one way or another. I'm quite surprised, actually, that the two that are going to be sentenced haven't cut a deal of some kind, especially in the face of a sentence. But, you know, a lot happens between now and when you get sentenced.
All right, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots, maybe some prediction for the weeks and months ahead. And Brian Rothenberg, you're up first.
So I just came from the swearing in of our new county coroner, a young guy named Nate Overmeyer, 34 years old. I think he's going to be around for a long time, and he's got a really fresh kind of attitude about, you know, he's not there just to do the the autopsies. He's there to try to make people live longer. I think you're going to hear that name around this town for a long time.
All right, Gene.
I was biting my tongue the whole last topic because the Shakespearean tragedy of Macbeth / Larry Householder is going to continue. Sentencing is in 2 weeks. My sources tell me that expect Larry and Matt to go to Terre Haute Federal Prison, which is a not nice place. And keep in mind that after spending a couple of weeks there, the feds will interview them again and say, now do you want to turn state's evidence? And so my advice to all my friends in elective office and in the lobbying universe, whatever you know, go tell the feds now. Please.
Don't go to Terre Haute.
Do not go to Terre Haute.
And Laura.
You know, something Gene said earlier was that the young workers and creative class, that they want quality of life issues. And you know, the legislature has been really focused on tax policy and job training, and I think that they want those things too. But I would agree with Gene that they also want quality of life issues like legalizing marijuana, LGBTQ policies that are friendly and welcoming, and that sort of thing.
And the short north is wide open for business once again. The city council in Columbus eliminated the, I think it was 3-week curfew for food truck operators. They can now sell slices and hot dogs and whatever until 2:30 in the morning now. So that curfew is over now that all is well in the short north. That ends Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online, wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.